Hello, everyone. I'm Shola Zelens, and I am representing Zelens Consulting, and Salsa Labs has requested that I do this presentation for you today. And today we're going to focus on board best practices and the things that you need to focus on during your annual review. What we'll discuss today, we have a topic outline that's going to address the following. One is, what role does the board play? First of all, the number one thing it focuses on is governance. It's also responsible for the annual review considerations, revising core governance documents, checking for compliance to ensure that everything is within compliance so that you don't have any issues, and of course to ensure the nonprofit is being successful in all of its efforts. The annual review. Why is it important? Every fiscal year, it is important for your board to not only address the upcoming annual budget and financial reporting, it is also critical to review current board best practices. This includes reviewing strategic goals, updating your bylaws, and revising conflict of interest policies. This is just to name a few. It is vital that these steps are taken every year to ensure that each annual audit comes through with flying colors. Not only does this prevent legal challenges for your organization, it also assists you with having a stronger appeal to foundations who are considering your organization for grant funding. These policies and procedures ensure that your organization is operating transparently, with accountability, ethically, and meeting all legal and accounting expectations. The board of directors is the governing body of the nonprofit organization, and they set the standards for the entire organization, including regular review of policies and procedures. Well, before we begin, we need to discuss the reason why these steps must be taken. This, of course, ties in directly with your board's effectiveness. The board is responsible for how it operates, including periodic reviews and evaluation of its own performance. It is the primary governing body that oversees all activities performed by the nonprofit organization. If the board is not continuously checking their own operations and evaluating its own effectiveness in upholding the nonprofit's mission, then it cannot properly or adequately govern the nonprofit organization. This includes having a stated performance expectation for every board member. Each board member must hold one another accountable to these expectations, which includes attendance at its meetings. Additional areas that require collaborative reinforcement are attendance and participation in fundraisers, committees performing various services, and involvement in program activities. Every board needs to establish a high standard strategy for board development. This includes strategies for replacing board members, recruiting new board members, and ensuring that your board member selection covers all areas that need to be addressed. This includes not only diverse talent sets, but diversity and community connections. Last but not least, board term limit policies must be clear. Policies must also include orientation procedures for new members, education for continuous board development, and for bringing new members up to speed. There must also be clear policies in place on how to appropriately remove a board member that is not performing per their commitment and board policies. So what is a best practices plan? Well, it covers operations, your governance, and management standards. It should be considered mandatory hygiene for nonprofits to embrace ethical and accountable management and governance in all their efforts. An effective best practices plan ensures the organizations assess their own operations, governance, and management against external industry sets of best practice standards. So what should you review? First of all, you need to review your bylaws, and we will get into this further. The second is your board positions. Make sure that everything is current. Number three is your annual conflict of interest policy updates. Sometimes they get outdated and you don't realize it, and you kind of need to check those. And number four, your board performance review. This is kind of important just as much as any staff review annually. So these are critical things to look into. Bylaw review. First, you want to ensure that your current bylaws no longer mention abolished committees or positions. If you have changed since the last time your board established your bylaws, it is essential that your bylaws remain accurate in representing the activities of your nonprofit board expectations. This includes keeping committee expectations or positions up to date with the functional activity your board is committed to adhering to. Ensure your contact information is accurate, including communication procedures. This seems obvious, but it is very easy to forget to keep this information up to date. This can be detrimental to all board members or even nonprofit management if board member details are not currently accurate. New board members need this information as well. Where this really becomes an issue is when your grant writer submits critical grant funding requests with inaccurate contact information. This reflects very poorly on your organization and can lead to grant funding denial. Ensure your organization's bylaw clauses accurately represent your organization's current reality and future planning. This may include re-implementation of old practices to guarantee your organization remains on mission. Board position review, member and officer descriptions. First, you want to ensure the roles and responsibilities accurately describe what is required for each role to successfully support the organization's mission. This is akin to a position manual for a staff member. Be as specific as necessary to facilitate the most effective board productivity. Verify that roles and responsibilities align with your organization's governing documents. This reinforces the need to review your bylaws to compare the descriptions for board member role expectations and board position review realities are indeed in sync. Ensure expectations assist with board recruitment, selection, and orientation. Provide role expectations prior to nomination acceptance for any new board members. A board-approved conflict of interest statement needs to apply to all parties, board members, staff, and volunteers. The policy and statement should be executed starting at the time of the person's initial affiliation with the organization and for at least one additional year after the individual leaves the organization. The conflict of interest policy will specify the types of conduct or transactional behavior that derive a conflict of interest with your organization. As such, it should clearly state procedures for disclosure of any and all actual or potential conflicts. It should also provide inclusion of uninvolved board of director transaction reviews. Factors to consider. The conflict of interest statement must provide for board member, employee, or volunteer disclosure of any known interests that they or anyone in their immediate family have with organizations that transact business with the nonprofit organization. Ensure the conflict of interest policy states specific conduct, which results in undeniable conflict of interest. The more specific, the easier to adhere to. Always be clear, concise, and thorough. Set forth disclosure procedures to address potential conflicts and a review process for individual transactions by board members who are uninvolved. Board performance review. Board assessment is a required annual board hygiene step that guides the most effective use of members relating to their individual talents and experiences. Use this review to identify gaps in talent and experience that a new incoming board member will need to fulfill. Ensure board members are performing according to their responsibilities. This includes fiduciary responsibilities, governance, attendance, fundraising, as well as any promised commitments. These are critical for effective board functionality, governance, and adequate support of the nonprofit's mission and goals. Require that board members complete a self-assessment of their service, as well as an assessment of the entire board of directors. Nonprofit health and success requires an annual checkup of the board of directors and all governing policies and procedures. Without this, improvement stalls and nonprofit functionality can fall outside of its own bylaws. These are red flags to any foundation considering funding for your organization. They like to see a well-run ship, and they want to see accountability matters to everyone in your organization. Schedule your checkup and prepare for this essential evaluation far in advance of the appointed time to ensure a well-considered review is prepared and outcomes can be effective and efficient. Last but not least, you definitely want to check out this helpful resource, which is the Standards for Excellence Institute. As seen on their page is the Foundation of Standards of Excellence program is published by the Standards for Excellence, an ethics and accountability code for the nonprofit sector. It identifies 6 major areas of nonprofit governance and management, which contain 27 different topic areas. So the basic thing you want to focus on here is we've just kind of scratched the surface of the primary things you should focus on, but you need to really get more in depth when you are setting up everything that you're trying to do with your bylaws and your governance and your strategies. And so this is a really helpful resource that you would probably want to have in your coffers just in case you need to double check things or need new ideas on how to approach a situation. And I have included the link below, so I highly recommend you take a look at that, and best of luck with all of your efforts.